Hello, virtual golfers and virtual golf designers. Today is a special day. I'm excited because I'm talking to Arctic Fury. He's a 2K Next maker, he's a course designer, he creates fantastic environments. We're gonna talk planting, rocks, waterfalls, buildings. Stay tuned for this. Most people know you as Arctic Fury and as a logo with blue letters and some anonymous guy who creates these awesome detailed golf courses. Adam, you have a real name and you have a voice.
Yeah, I do.
Is this your first time talking on air about course design?
No, I did one before with Crazy Canuck, Andre,
Okay.
a few years ago, I believe. But that was when I just had my first child and I hadn't slept for like 3 days straight. And I was barely awake for it, so it wasn't the best time to do it this stream.
Okay.
But,
Well, I hope you had a better night's sleep.
yeah, now
today.
I'm doing a lot better.
Good. So you've been in course design ever since what version of this game? Since the
TGC
beginning?
1 since the beginning,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow.
So I designed before that, but not really publicly. I designed for Jack Nicklaus. Golden Bear Challenge was the 1st game, I believe, in '98.
Mm-hmm.
And designed for that game for a bunch of years. And then I experimented. I believe the Tiger Woods game had a designer at one point. I tried it, didn't like it. So then I just gave up designing and just played golf games. And then eventually got sick of playing the same old courses all over again. And then I was, yeah,
Yeah, like so
And then-
many of us.
exactly. So then TGC 1 came out and I seen it had a designer. So I jumped back in and started designing again.
So you are known for the detail in your courses, and I need to get one question out of the way. And if you look at the bottom right of the screen, you probably already see it. But do you have more than 100% object meter?
No, I have the same meter as everybody else. I use the exact same designer. There's nothing special about the designer I use.
Because this is what people ask, because you put so many objects in and everything is so detailed, and there's something happening visually in each corner of each frame. So how do you do that? How do you get so much detail in your courses? Because this is something that basically everyone wants to know.
Well, basically, it's just about. It's really an illusion. It's wherever the camera is facing, I tend to put the detail in those areas. So as you see right here now, the first tee shot is about filling up kind of like screen real estate. So and just making sure that there's always something filling empty space on the camera on the screen. But if you look around, if you go like wandering around my courses, you'll notice that where we're kind of limited with the planting meter, that I don't waste any planting meter in areas that the camera is very unlikely to end up.
Yeah, so looking at it from the golfer's perspective here, or just behind the golfer, we're seeing this part of the frame is filled with those flowers and this garbage can that is not actually a garbage can, but a piece of candy. And then there's just the front of that cart is coming into the frame. But when you zoom out, let's zoom out, you'll actually see that there's not a whole lot of detail behind those assets. Now, this is not the only view that we're getting of the tee, because you get this pre-shot animation. So you actually look at those two. So that would be this direction, I think, and that one perhaps.
Yeah, that's kind of new in 2K23. Like you kind of get the view behind the golfer, and I tried my best to make sure that there's some detail behind the view, but
Mm-hmm.
like we have to make compromises, because we only have so much object meter, and I just have to choose it wisely, and it's always a compromise until
So it's not so much that
until they
you
give us more meters.
sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah, yeah. So it's not so much that you put more objects in. You just choose wisely where to put them.
I don't waste anything. I don't multi-plant. Everything you see on my course is hand planted. So
Mm-hmm.
it could be hundreds of thousands of pieces of grass. It's all planted by hand.
Yeah.
I don't use copy paste. Um, nothing. Everything is 100% hand planted.
So how long? How many hours do you spend on one course then?
It's hundreds of hours. Yeah, it's a very, very long process. And I've been doing it for so many years that it's kind of pretty fast at it now, and I've made a few tweaks in order for me to make courses faster recently, specifically a controller.
Okay.
Um, so I purchased this new controller. I used it for my last course. It's a Razer Wolverine V2 or whatever. It has the back extra triggers on the back.
Okay.
So one of the issues I had was, when you're planting hundreds of thousands of pieces of grass, you
Mm-hmm.
can't rotate them at the same time. It's just going to take forever. So what I did is program the back bumper to be say a turn right position. So
Okay.
I can, as I'm planting, I can spin the grass at the same time.
Yeah.
So it avoids that like that where the issue where the grass just looks like it's the same piece of
Yeah.
grass
So let's
planted.
say I'm planting this right now. If you
Hmm.
cannot turn it around, you would have it look like that.
Yeah, so
But you
basically,
actually
and
want this to happen, right?
exactly. So I use controller. I don't use mouse and keyboard. So
Uh huh.
that was one of the limitations I had. But with this new controller, I'm able to get the grass to blend more evenly now. So
Yeah. Yeah. So don't look back would be the advice to players on your courses then, because you need to look in this direction for it to be visually stunning as it is. Correct?
exactly, and I'll look at the ball, the different camera angles as the tee shots are as the ball's flying through the air, and I'll make sure that there's no patches of like area that like really stand out of being like unplanted.
Mm-hmm.
And especially on a course like this where it's not tightly rooted and it's kind of every hole is a separate level. Um, I'm working on a new course that has, you know, really tight rooting and you can see other holes. You can see almost the whole course from certain areas. So
Yeah.
I don't need to be, you know, that particular where holes are running right along each other. And
Yeah.
but with this specific course, it was kind of like each hole, it's just different level.
Yeah, and I saw that because I made a course trailer for this course, and I flew around on this plot, and I am used to making very tightly routed courses and just a world as a whole, whereas you create these different levels and don't necessarily care about a realistic routing as such. And I ran into an issue when I was making the shots, the dolly shots for your video, because didn't have 100% freedom with where I was moving my camera. For instance, I could not make this really nice shot from this angle because, well, look.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's like you're creating these little movie sets, these little stages where there's layers of detail, and that's the illusion I think you're talking about, correct?
Exactly. It's just one every hole for this particular course is like an enclosed little universe on its own.
Yeah. Except
It's
for maybe some holes that kind of
it
show other parts of the course as well.
yeah, it's rare on this one, but it like the routing still has to make some sort of sense. Like I know there's like a little bit of drives in between. Like you'd obviously have to take a cart for this course,
Mm-hmm.
but the routing still has to make some sort of sense. Like you can't just have all the holes go in one direction. But and number nine, I wanted to kind of make it like tie it together a bit just to see, hey, you are returning to the clubhouse. There's hole
Yeah.
one in the distance.
Yeah.
So it still makes sense. It's that you can't see, for this particular course, you can't see other holes a lot from,
No.
and that's just the way this course was designed too. I use a lot of the auto gen trees
Mm-hmm.
um, for this course in order to save planting meter.
Yeah.
Um, and say if I was building a more Highlands course, which is my next course, you don't have those trees on it, so you need to make sure that you're having your course tightly routed. So
Yeah, exactly. So let's talk about plot design a little bit, because you obviously raised this plot a lot. Why do
hmm
you raise it that far up?
um, well, the first reason is I'd rather, like, if I want to do elevation change or dramatic sculpting, it's easier to work down than it is to work up.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why, like, if your plot level's right at the, along the ocean or at the water table level, you're kind of limited on how far you can go down. You'll hit the
Yeah.
water, right?
Yeah.
So I prefer to build it up, and then if I want to have a hole go down or up, it's just a lot easier to work when you have that freedom. Secondly, I wanted to have like a mist, like a foggy mist, go over the outside of the course and kind of like not mask, but like um, just kind of like make it look more dramatic
Mm-hmm.
for the shots for the holes that run along the
Yeah.
side of the cliffs and stuff. It
Yeah.
just makes it look more dramatic, I guess.
Yeah.
And also what I'll do is I'll set that mist at a certain level, and then I like to during the round at some point dip below that level.
Yeah.
You'll notice I think it's this hole down in the valley.
Yeah.
You'll
This one
notice
right there.
that this is a hole that starts to dip below that mist level, and it just breaks up the visual monotony of a course, and you can see there's like a mist coming in from the mountains,
Uh-huh.
and that's because I dipped below that fog level.
Yeah, and
And
it kind of and that's actually that would be realistic because a little valley like this could hold some mist, some fog, right?
yeah, sure, and it makes it look more visually interesting. It blends the mountains and well, I wouldn't say mountains or logs and mix with
Yeah.
rocks, but
Yeah, we'll
and
get to that later in the interview because that's a trick that you'll see on a lot of courses where there's rocks involved right now. You use the same object maybe in 3 or 4 different ways. You really you kind of invent a new way to use an object. I mean, we're looking at this garbage can here. That is actually that candy. I will actually show it while I talk about it. The garbage can that was actually candy, and you have buildings that look different all of a sudden. How do you go about doing that? I mean, do you just go through those lists of objects and have a plot where you just try different stuff the whole time?
yeah, I think I'm just good at using um, limited resources to make something new. I mean, we've been having the same objects for a lot of time in the designer.
Mm-hmm.
They're starting to add a lot more now, which is amazing. But it's kind of like I want to bring a different look to each course I make, and I want to do something different, and just to keep the visual interest up in the courses and stuff, and especially with the garbage cans, we had the same one since TGC one, which
Yeah.
is I think 8 or 9 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just that also too is the color. It's that little bit of color variety that's on screen that just, for me, it makes it more visually interesting,
Yeah.
um, especially for a more fantasy type course like this.
So we're looking at this tee shot. This is a par three hole. I'm always fond of making par three holes because you have so much control over what people will see, and you can just dictate basically everything because there's no second shot, no layups. Um, Tell me a little bit. What are we seeing here in the frame? How do you look at this? Why is there a waterfall there? Why are those trees on the side here?
Yeah, so I try to make every tee shot look like a painting. Um, and if you look at like a lot of nature paintings, they tend to have, like especially Bob Ross, he'll tend to have like trees coming along in like coming along the borders of his painting and stuff like that. So I'll try to frame it like that, and everything when I plant the hole, I work from the frame of the tee box.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sitting back, have the camera positioned on the tee box, and I'm planting everything from that angle, as opposed to like being above and trying to plant stuff
But you
because you never
mean
really know.
even those
You,
trees and those rocks and everything right there?
everything is planted from the perspective of, you know, facing the tee
Okay.
box.
Yeah.
I may zoom in a bit to get to do some finer detail
Sure.
work,
Yeah.
but because you never really know how something looks if you're planting from above
Hmm.
or or like angles that ain't everything has to be planted for the from the perspective of the tee box.
Yeah.
And so I bring in some color like with the ball washers and that sort of stuff. That's all that's there for, is just different contrasts of color, flowers there, the little divots which are pine cones buried.
Yeah.
Um, and I like to have some wildlife to try to bring it to life. Some you'll see butterflies there and stuff, and
Yeah. It's always insects though.
yeah, I haven't done it on my new course because it's kind of I'm gonna take a break from it.
But
Um,
I was kind of hinting towards the birds that will not be able, that you'll not be able to use here, right?
yeah, exactly. The birds, they tend to they you can't adjust the height of them. They adhere to a certain level, and if your plot goes too high, they'll just fly right underneath it. And yeah, so like I don't plant anything that can't be seen
Mm-hmm.
from the perspective of the camera. Like there's no point of planting an amazing water feature if when you're teeing off, you can't see it. It's just a waste of planting meter from, that's the way I think about it.
Yeah.
But everybody's different. I mean, I'm not saying there's a right or a wrong. That's just the way I see it. If I can't really see it from the tee box, I don't waste time
Sure, that makes sense,
on.
and that leaves
Mhm.
you a lot more plant meter to use to actually show people what you made, right?
Exactly.
So there's where you place the objects, and then there's also how you place them. I've seen grass, little grass that's small because it's closed, but there's also grass on your courses that's really tall because it's further away from where the golfers are. Do you do that for other objects as well? Rocks, probably.
Yeah, for sure. Like with the grass, if it's anywhere near the playing surface, you don't want to have like I think we used to call it the Jurassic Park grass.
Mm-hmm.
Try to avoid that. And so if it's near the playing surfaces, I try to pick a grass that renders good, because what people don't realize is that the different grasses in the game render at different distances.
Yeah, yeah,
And not only that, some pop in immediately and some slowly fade in.
yeah.
So you need to make sure that like it's very difficult to get right, because if you're trying to accommodate like a PS4, the draw distance is going to be a lot less than a PC at max settings. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I've gotten it right mostly. Like I've watched console players. You can see there's a little bit of um, pop in there.
Yeah, it still
But
happens on those on that
yeah,
bunker side planting. I mean,
but
you cannot prevent it, but
yeah,
there's ways to work around some of that.
yeah.
Um,
And in
so
terms of yeah, like in terms of this detail, like you cannot have that too close to the playing surfaces because it just becomes so washed out and low resolution.
yeah.
Those are actually just dead winter logs.
Uh-huh.
Um,
So this is a trick
and
that you came up with in 2K21, I think, and everybody started using. I'm just going to pick your course apart here,
yeah, you can destroy
but
it. I don't care.
yeah. So let's just put it right there and show people.
It
If you
looks
don't
bad,
know
actually.
about this, that looks kind of funny.
In terms of rock faces, I've just used. I just came up with that log trick. I don't even. It was kind of. I don't even know how I did it. I think I was just messing around one day, and I was like, I want to have rock faces,
Yeah,
and I just want to. And we had the same rocks for so long. I was like, I got to come up with something new, and I just slowly started blending it in, and then mixing different rocks in, and it actually turned out really well.
yeah.
And I first did that on Weeping Spruce Golf Club,
Mm-hmm.
and I think I fooled everyone at first. And it was it was a little fluky neat thing I came up with, and yeah, it's just employing like the bump mapping technique. I've always been obsessed with game graphics, and
Uh-huh.
I first discovered that bump mapping. I remember I was reading like Xbox magazine for Halo 2, and they were talking about bump mapping. This is back in the early 2000s, and it's basically just um, using like different shades to create depth when there's no actual depth, and you're not actually using more polygons. It's just um, it's just the way the textures are painted. It appears to be like raised surfaces and lower.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about that. I was like, how can I recreate that in the game? And I couldn't do it with the textures because the way the textures blend in this game is too, it wasn't precise enough. And I just
Mm-hmm.
ended up like enlarging a log and saying, it kind of looks like there's different crevices. And I was like, if I can, and if I can mix rock in with that too, try to blend it in somehow, and
Yeah.
with grasses, I might be able to pull it off, and it seemed to work.
So how much
But
of
now
that knowledge is obsolete now that we have these really cool new rocks?
it's, yeah, I'm not sure I may still use this technique because you can still achieve looks that you can't achieve with the new rocks. But I am so glad they gave us those new rocks. Like I'm already creating way more realistic mountains, and
Mm-hmm.
I'll show that which you'll see in my next course. And the leap in graphics for my next course is pretty. I'm pretty happy about it. It's pretty substantial, like with those new rocks. Yeah, the biggest thing with these new rocks is that if you like, they have the great detail from far away, but when you zoom in, you'll notice that they still have high resolution.
Yeah.
Like that's the biggest change I noticed, that if you're enlarging an old one of the old rocks, or one of the old, or using the log technique, it just gets completely blurred out
Yeah.
if you're up close. But if you'll as you'll see here, I mean, even up close, these new rocks still have,
Still works
you
pretty
know,
good.
yeah.
Yeah, and
Um,
that's made them really useful because you can blow them up, you can shrink them down, and if you mix and match those in a rocky area like this, you are not bound to the shape the pre-made shape, but you can really create your own shapes.
exactly. This looks really good.
Thank you. And
Yeah.
another thing that's really important, I think, is the mixture of textures and lighting. Can you elaborate a little bit on that? Because I think the lighting makes a huge difference in how the courses look graphically.
Yeah, lighting is one of the things that I spend almost the most time on at the beginning of a course. It's lighting is everything in this game. Um, and there's pros and cons to different lighting, but um, generally, like I'll spend a long time at the beginning of a course just getting the lighting down, and once I have it, I do not touch it. It stays the way it is because you have to work with that lighting,
Mm-hmm.
and if you change it like through a game, through halfway through making a course, you may blur out a lot of detail. You may
Yeah.
throw throw a shadow over a green. Well, see this course here, like when HP ported it over to 2K23, the lighting changed.
Mm-hmm.
It still looks good, but it doesn't look as nearly as good as using the deep, like the original lighting
I was
settings
gonna
that
say because
were.
originally this was I think a little bit more, a little bit dimmed down,
Yeah,
right?
I was using a kind of a neutral overcast lighting.
Yeah.
It was similar with the practice facility I created for 2K23.
Yes.
I had a different lighting, but I guess when they ported it into the new game, it automatically changed the lighting, and it still looks good, but I mean,
Could
it
have been
was
better.
yeah, and that's just, you know, it's kind of unavoidable when you're porting courses over.
Yeah.
It's hard to get the exact same lighting you had originally,
So
especially where there's a new lighting engine and stuff.
yeah, yeah, and that engine, the lighting engine, actually changed the way I light my courses now. Because I used to go for lower lighting in 2K21 and in 2019,
Hmm.
and now I've changed that to using. I'm not going earlier than maybe 10:30 a.m. or later than 3:30 p.m.
Hmm.
Because I think the shadows and all that has changed massively, and it's made the higher lighting look so much better actually.
Yeah, I think the overall the lighting is a lot better for the course part in 2K23.
Mm-hmm.
The only issue I have is sometimes it darkens the golfer a little bit more, and
Yes.
you lose a lot of detail on the model, which is the models are actually really fantastic in this game, I believe,
Mm-hmm.
and you can best I still believe like the game looks best with a overcast kind of neutral lighting.
Yeah.
It's the most balanced, but I mean, the trade-off is when you're, say, if you were building a links course, um, like when I built Sherwood Shores, I did use like a sunny, like I don't no cloud type of lighting,
Let's
and
actually dive into that. And
because
then,
it shows off the contours and the sculpting better. But then again, if you're going, if you're going into the sun, you always run into that problem of it, you know, it's hard to make a hole look really good when you're going into the sun because you get that really bright lighting is less dramatic,
yeah.
and so it's always a trade-off. But generally speaking, this is a different, you know, I usually don't use this type of lighting, but I wanted to show off the sculpting and it
Yeah.
fit the plot pretty well.
So a lot of designers over the years have adopted some of the techniques that you're using. How do you look at that? Is that something that you see as a compliment?
Oh, for sure, yeah, I love it. It's I don't get a chance to play the game very much. I got to be honest. Like the little time I do have, I'm just in the designer, so um, I'm not really aware of all the courses, the amazing courses that are being released, and I don't get a whole lot of time to play. But I do like run across, some YouTube videos if I got a lunch break at work, and
Mm-hmm.
I'll watch it and I'll see like, oh yeah, I can see some of my own um, design in that or
So,
something I
so who's the
did. And
designer that stands out in that perspective to you?
uh, I think his name is Chris C. I don't really
Mm-hmm.
Chrissy. I don't know how to pronounce his name. Um, I see some elements from him that look, oh yeah, that looks a lot like mine. And others I just seen him, and there's other designers that I actually looked at, and I, said, oh, wow, there's a few, like, I don't get a chance to play the game that often. I've literally probably played maybe a handful of user courses in the past 5 years. It's that, there has been a few times where I looked at a few courses and I was like, wow, like, this is amazing.
Thanks so much for sharing your thoughts, Adam, and thank you, all the people on YouTube, for watching this video. If you like what you've seen, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you in the next one.